Rachel.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome back to Capital Conversations with Rachel and Lauren.
This week, we're going to talk about the upcoming government funding deadline, Rachel's coverage of all things campaign and kind of going into 2026. We have an interview with Congressman Tim Burchett, and then we'll be answering some questions from the audience.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Capital Conversations. We are back in the studio, which is amazing. Last episode, we were on Zoom. Recess things, obviously.
Yep.
And there's a lot that has happened to us in the last couple weeks. You know, we were with family, we were home, we were in the office, we were, laying on our couches, and now, the government is coming back. September 2nd is when
Get the ball rolling.
And so our first thing that we're talking about today is the dreaded thing, drum roll, government funding,
Yay.
which is so fun for everyone involved. It is the same story over and over again. And so we're going to break that down for people who don't even know what that is. So Lauren, what is a CR? What is a continuing resolution?
So a continuing resolution is essentially the way that the government has been funded the past few years. Since I've been covering Congress over the last 3 years, we've had continuing resolutions. So essentially, there are 12 appropriations bills, and they pass through committee, and then they have to pass the House and the Senate. The problem right now is that Republicans...
Many problems are happening at the moment.
The Republicans have a trifecta. They have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the White House. But in the Senate, to pass these bills, it requires a 60-vote threshold, and Republicans do not have 60 votes right now, so it is going to require some going across the aisle and negotiating. With that, usually it is hard to get a government funding bill across the finish line from the House through the Senate at the 60-vote threshold and then to the president's desk and have it all come together nicely, which is why we do a CR, which essentially just extends current spending levels for however long the CR is allowing.
So basically for this CR, it would be extending Biden level, like President Joe Biden, his spending that he, that administration put forward, requested. That's what this CR would be pushing. And so that's another problem our Republicans are running into is that they don't want to extend Biden funding.
Yes.
And however, even Republicans have told us, before recess, I'm sure they'll tell us when we come back that they, unfortunately, a CR is probably what's going to happen. Because those 12 bills, it's been very rare in the last few years, like 24, 25, and now fiscal year 26. It's not something we write the same story twice. This bill passes, for spending for defense or spending for interior. But after that, those, I think the defense one is one of the more tricky ones. Republicans, even together, can't argue on defense. Interior and Veterans Affairs and things like that, that usually parties can rally behind Veterans Affairs. That's something that they can easily do. But I think that right now there's so much infighting within the Republican Party. Democrats just had this rescissions package happen to them and got them, those funds taken away. And so in their eyes, they're thinking, well, why would we vote for an appropriations bill and send it away for then the president to just rescind the funds that we appropriated? So there's definitely a lot going on. And a lot of people, I think, especially people who aren't in DC, probably don't really care. They don't care. And that's why we do the show, is because we want people to care. We want people to understand what's going on. But I think they don't care about government funding. They know it's funded or it's not. But I think for people in DC, a CR is very annoying. It's annoying for us sometimes because we just know that, in 6 months or in 30 days, we're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, a CR can be any amount of time. They've been 2 weeks, they've been 30 days, they've been a whole year. And so right now I think that Republicans are looking at a year-long CR.
That's been the word on the street. We'll see if that sticks.
We'll see if it sticks. In turn, a year-long CR extending previous levels is technically a cut to spending, which is what Republicans are arguing.
Especially Freedom Caucus. Freedom Caucus are the more hardliners. They're the ones who want to see they're the fiscal hawks. They want to see, if they could have it, there'd be no spending. So obviously that's not, conducive for the government and the world that we're in now, but they want to see as much as possible. And so to get any of them, and that's a giant block, Freedom Caucus and their allies, that's at least 25 members. Johnson, the speaker, has a three-seat majority, maybe 4. It's
depending on the day.
Depending on who's ill or who's, not there. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see who votes for it.
And I mean, it usually comes right up to the deadline. We are at the Capitol going up to the midnight government funding deadline when the government's going to shut down. which is typically a Friday. So like a government being shut down on a weekend isn't that big of a deal. Besides,
it's not
like
big of a deal
national
until
parks.
we're sitting there like, oh, do we have to come in on Saturday?
Yes.
Which sounds so stupid because like that's our job, but it's so funny to us that the government.
But it is usually up to the line. Usually we have some late nights leading up to government funding during a CR deadline or whatever that deadline may be. So we have that coming at the end of September. I think that that's going to be where most of the heads are turned.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's not much else
as of right now
to do. I mean, that's not true. There's a lot
to do.
That's not true. I'll take that back. Like, there's still the Jeffrey Epstein files. There's still, redistricting fights that are going on. And I think that there are going to be a lot of bills that members will want to bring to the floor. I think that most of the energy, most of the backroom talks, most of the leadership conferences, meetings between leadership and hardliners, I think that is mainly going to be a government funding focus. So that will be, we have to become like funding experts, which I am not one. So it definitely is kind of a test on our abilities, but it's fun in the end. I guess everything's fun.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is what they're looking at going into session.
Yeah.
But they have been home and they've started kind of ramping up 2026.
Which is insane. We just had 2024.
We're already looking at 2026. So tell me a little bit about the chaos that is now turning into the 2026 midterms.
Oh, there's so much. Let's get into it. So, first off, 2025 also has elections. A lot of people only think of elections in, 2020. Presidential, basically. It's 2020, 2024.
2028.
We had the 2028. We had the 2022 midterms. We're going to have the 2026 midterms. But a lot of people forget about the 2025 cycle that's happening right now. We have a couple states, Virginia and New Jersey, for example, they have governor's races. Those governor's races are going to be very indicative of not only Democrats' success and where they're going as a party. Obviously, in 2024, they did not do well. That's just, it's, what side of the line you're on, they did not do well. And so that's kind of the reckoning they've had to have. And so right now, those governor's races are going, if they can keep those seats or flip those seats blue, that will be a clear referendum on Trump and his policies. And historically, the House can flip to the party opposite the White House in the midterm. So
it favors in the midterms after a president is inaugurated. It does typically favor the party non-power just because like when the president comes in, their first 100 days are so detrimental. They do so much and like they're doing so much at such a fast rate that I'm not saying that it's not necessarily popular, but like they are doing so much and so much is changing that like it typically does flip the opposite way because it gets the other party energized.
Well, voters are just exhausted because and that's the thing I think a lot of people, both in D.C. and out of D.C., don't even really understand is that a president promises a lot in those first 100 days. Very rarely do presidents get all of what they've promised, even half, because it's just not possible. The economy is a huge thing, and neither one of us is going to say that we are economic experts.
Nope.
We have an economics reporter for that, but we understand that, and that's something that I think that members of Congress, when we're speaking to them, that's a lot of their excuse. Either it's Democrats saying, well, Trump promised to do this, and none of it's happening, so his policies are failing. Republican side is saying, you got to give him time. We just signed this big, beautiful bill. You're going to see the effects so soon. And so I think that's what these 2025 elections are really doing. So recently, we had a win in Iowa for the Democrats. And so that was for a special election. It was a state Senate race. Now, a lot of people in D.C., in the rest of the country, or in Iowa are probably thinking, who the heck cares? And the answer is people should, because what these special elections and these state races do is they're a minute, but they are a strong temperature check of where the parties are. And so, we're in August, and President Trump was inaugurated in January, and Republicans passed that bill. There's a lot has been happening. And so these races are really supposed to show not only where the party in power is with the everyday voter, but the party that's not in power, how they can drive turnout. And so the race that happened with Caitlin Dray, she was able to win that race with 55% of the vote. It was a low turnout race, however.
Typical
of special elections. Democrats have been able to monopolize frequent voters into their base more than Republicans. That wasn't always the case. Republicans were able to get people out there no problem. And now Democrats kind of have that monopoly. And so I think that was one, if not the most important factor in this Iowa race is that Democrats are able to get that low turnout.
Well, I mean, it's also like a matter of they're kind of seeing what messaging is sticking and what messaging is energizing the base. Like,
yes,
obviously they messaged on issues that really didn't resonate with people in 2024. Yeah. And so, like, elections that are happening, obviously they matter in Iowa. They matter, like, there was a mayoral in Omaha. We've seen the mayoral in New York. But, like, for the party as a whole, it's a really good indicator of, like, what they should message on in a big midterm or in a presidential. And so I think that the Democratic Party is going to be looking to the wins of these small wins and taking what worked and use them in the bigger elections.
It's basically like the world's, or like the country's biggest focus group. Like, they basically get to throw these candidates out there and they put their resources behind them, both parties, and they say, if we run them on these issues, who likes them, who doesn't, what works, what doesn't. And so that's going to be something that when we have these governor races coming up in the fall, other races in like the mayoral race, the New York City mayoral race, that's going to be a big one as well. I think that those three will probably be the most indicative of our Democrats on the uphill and Republicans are shit like crap, like we gotta hustle. Or is it, if we see some losses there, it could be a case where maybe that could be a case where both parties are lacking. You know, if Democrats don't win these races, it might not be because of them. It could be because of just like high Republican turnout or whatever the case may be. It's going to be kind of a referendum from both parties to take a check.
Yeah.
And moving into 2026.
Yeah, I was about to say this, like, the indicativeness of like these small races definitely plays into why redistricting is happening.
Yes, redistricting is also a big thing. Yeah, and like elections always bounce off each other. What happens in 2025 matters in 2026. What happens in 2026 is going to matter in 28 when Democrats and Republicans have to pick a presidential candidate to run. So with redistricting, which we had discussed in our last episode, and we've been discussing, which feels like forever, but it's only really been a month or so, that with this Texas redistricting, it's now forcing a lot of Democrats into the same districts. Yeah. And you are from Texas, and so you probably know more intimately about these members than me, someone from Illinois does. But the general thing that I'm starting to gather from this, and you can offer some insight, is some of these members are now making the choice whether to bow out or not. And I think we've already seen one, right?
Yes, Congressman Doggett. So with the new redistricting maps, which aren't like official yet, but most likely will be, it draws out essentially 5 Democrats, which goes up to, it would be 78% of Texas is represented in Congress by Republicans, whereas in 2024, 54% of
give or take,
voters voted congressionally red. But it does draw out 5 Democrats, and it does merge some Democratic districts. Lloyd Doggett is one of the longest serving Texas Democrats. He represents a lot of Austin. And then Greg Casar, he's House Progressive Chair. He's 36 now, so pretty young. He's pretty new to Congress. But they draw in some of his district, and then his district is favored slightly red now.
Yeah.
Casar said that he would now run in the new district that is drawn with Doggett.
Which is kind of crazy because Doggett's district is still like 2/3
2/3 his, yes.
And then Casar's is getting the other third, and Casar was like, well, I'm still going to run. And I think I remember Doggett put out a statement that was like, I would hope that he wouldn't do that, but I'm still running. That was his thing. And then all of a sudden we got a new statement.
Yes, and it was essentially saying the same thing. He was like, I wish that Congressman Casar wasn't running, but also I wish him the best. And if he does run in my district, I won't run.
Right.
Essentially.
So it's leaving that door open. So nothing's set in stone, obviously. No. Filing deadlines for Texas aren't until September.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about that maybe right this second.
Yes.
But I mean, September's coming around the corner. It will be September very soon, and you know the swing of September very soon, and that will be something that a lot of Democrats, unfortunately, probably in their minds did not need. They did not need this extra drama because not only do they have now this red swell in Texas with this redistricting problem, but then it's causing internal problems with them as well. And we're seeing Representative Julie Johnson potentially could be going up against Jasmine Crockett in another district. And that would be a crazy race.
Because Johnson, I mean, she's a freshman. She did well in her district. But then Jasmine Crockett is like a firebrand in the party right now.
Yeah, she's huge. Like, she's a big vocal. When we are hearing, you know, President Trump or House Republican leadership, they always say that the leaders of the party are AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and Hakeem Jeffries. they always are just tagging Crockett on that. And so she will probably energize a lot of younger voters, I would say, especially. I mean, you're way more online than I am, but I think TikTok and Reels, she's dominated. I mean, and Julie Johnson is fantastic, and she does really well with social media, and she's great with reporters. They're both great candidates for this Democratic Party, but I think Jasmine Crockett does have the monopoly.
It really does just pit the party against each other.
At the end of the day, that's basically what it is. And I don't know if Republicans intended that, but it was kind of an extra benefit for them.
I was about to say, I don't think it just happened. I think there's definitely a benefit for them.
There was definitely a benefit. I think they kind of knew what they were doing, and the redistricting is also drawing other candidates who we've seen before to come back. And so I got a scoop on the fact that former Congresswoman Mayra Flores, she is now coming back to run against Vicente Gonzalez. And so she had announced that she was going up against Henry Cuellar. She was going to challenge him in his District 28 for Texas. And that was her plan, because she had already lost to Gonzalez twice. She lost to him to get a full election to the term in her seat, and then she lost recently in the 2024 elections. And so she was not going to run. People thought she was, and in April she said, nope, I'm running against Cuellar. That's my plan. But with redistricting, it actually showed her then with her new district that's been drawn, the new 34 district, she blows the other primary candidates out of the water. And so she told me that she's planning to now switch and run against Gonzalez again. So third time's a charm for her, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how the Republican Party rallies behind her. The House Republican campaign arm is pretty good about protecting incumbents. And so even though she is not under their umbrella anymore, I'm assuming that will be a heavy spent race, because it was in 2024, it was in 2022. Republicans dropped a lot of money, millions. Outside groups dropped millions.
Texas is going to have millions and millions spent.
Oh yeah,
in 26. We have redistricting, but then you also have a Republican primary in Texas. It's huge. It's
for the Senate. The AG. Don't forget about the Senate.
Don't forget about the Senate. It's the AG running against incumbent John Cornyn.
And then don't forget, in the Attorney General race, Chip Roy is now running against another former
Big House member.
Ted Cruz member, and so that's pitting two people against each other. Ken Paxton endorsed one candidate, Ted Cruz endorsed the other. So Texas has a lot going on. It'll probably be the most watched state. I think it is going to be pretty detrimental in 26, and it's going to run through a lot of money. And I think also what's very interesting is that this is just another example of where Republicans are going to really have to just get on the ground and make sure that they are maintaining the areas that they want to maintain. Because if you pull money away from other states to focus on Texas, throwing a lot of money into Cornyn's race against Paxton, that leaves a lot of money out for other places, especially places like Omaha, where Don Bacon is now not running. And so that is a very purple seat where he is now going to be vacant, and incumbents usually do well. It's very favorable to have an incumbent in a race, because more often than not they mostly win. And so now it's an open seat. And so you were just in Omaha.
I was
talking to voters and Democrats being there trying to flip it blue, because Don Bacon had a tight grip on it. And so what did you hear? What were the Democrats saying? What was kind of their message?
So I kind of did all around reporting in Omaha. Senator Warren and Congressman Maxwell Frost did a rally there. It is the only Republican-held seat that is now favored for Democrats, according to Cook Political Report. Now that Congressman Don Bacon is retiring, he had this really interesting, just way of holding on to that seat. It is an extremely purple seat, and for him to have held on to that seat for 5 elections is kind of
insane. But
an anomaly.
Makes sense. His personality
it is.
He's warm. He's chatty. He's conservative. He's Republican, and that's why he is good with the party. But I've never, heard a Democrat say a bad word about him.
But he was just a special candidate. You would ask anyone the NRCC, you ask campaign teams, and they're just he just had it. So I interviewed him leading up to the rally, and he attributed it to having this killer instinct. He was winning in this district, you have to have that it factor. You have to have that, what he called his killer instinct, and he was I just don't think I would have that a 6th time. He was I don't have it in me to run it again. He's you campaign the entire time, the whole 2 years you're in Congress, you campaign, since it is it is on paper, according to Cook Political, again, the most competitive seat across the map. And Democrats are favored for that right now. I think that Democrats are just showing out. I mean, the rally was at max capacity.
Wow.
There was lines and lines of people waiting to get in. I think that the voters there are just excited, but also they are concerned, or they expressed their concerns to me about what President Trump was doing. I think that my biggest takeaway, honestly, from going to Omaha was the age of the rally. I would say that majority of the rally, like anywhere from 70-80% of the rally was 50 to 60 years old and older.
Really?
Like the rally, the age was so high. And I talked to a lot of them. A lot of them are concerned with Social Security.
I thought you were going to tell me that like the random age was like 18. Or
I
like
thought so
19
too.
Or 20.
I went into this expecting it to be like people our age. Like I was going to chat. It was all old people. I asked them why they were showing out, and the majority of them said that they were showing out because they were nervous about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I think that Democrats have a really good chance at grabbing that seat in 26. And in a 3-seat majority, grabbing one seat is a huge deal.
And before redistricting, Democrats only needed a 3-seat, net gain of 3 seats to flip. Obviously, with this redistricting and drawing things out, the math there is going to be different, but it's still going to be small. The margin doesn't just magically get bigger because of these seats. And so I think, and also don't forget that if California redistricts and they write out their 5 Republicans that they're targeting, then it's even again. And then, will Illinois redistrict? Will Indiana? Will Ohio?
Maryland, New York.
And some of them...
The list goes on.
Yeah, the list goes on. And some of them were even kind of planning to redistrict next year. And then we have the news coming out of Utah about their maps, and they have to redraw new ones. Like, there's just so much going on. And so it's very hard to say right now who's going to have the upper hand when it comes to the seat grabs. But seats like Bacon are going to be, they should not be taken for granted, and I don't think any party is.
Yeah. Well, enough of just hearing from us.
Enough of us yapping.
Up next, we have Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett to talk about government funding, his future in politics, and then also his thoughts on D.C. politics.
His wide-ranging thoughts on D.C. politics.
And we have Congressman Tim Burchett with us. Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us today.
Thank you all for having me.
Awesome. Well, we have a few questions for you. We'll make them short and sweet. And Lauren, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, well, we'll jump right in. Obviously, with August recess coming to a close, we have a lot coming up on the docket in September. I think that it's going to be a super busy month for the House, and I know that we have a big government funding deadline coming up at the end of September. So can you tell me a little bit about what that process is going to look like for the Speaker with such a slim majority? I know that government funding deadlines sometimes are hard to come up to with a lot of long nights. So what do you foresee in the future for this government funding deadline?
Well, I hope we're going to do more than our usual 2-hour work days. To be honest with you, I think we need to get to work. I wished we would actually pass a real budget. I know that's kind of foreign. It's not real sexy, and members of Congress don't like to talk like that. They love the continued resolution. I suspect we're going to end up with another continued resolution, though. And I hate those because you just continue bad spending policies of the past and then add more onto it, and it's either up or down. And there's no discussion. I think that's a cop-out myself. But go ahead.
And what we've seen we saw this in March and we saw it last year. It's kind of come down to the wire where it's the day before the government is, funding is going to expire. Everyone's on the edge of their seats. Can you describe from a member's perspective what that's like? There's 3 hours left until government funding shuts down. You're in the Speaker's office. You're talking to people. Can you kind of describe that moment and how members come to a conclusion and come to a solution?
Well, I think it's panic by design. I think that's a way it's sort of tradition, really, to do that kind of nonsense. And it had something to do with the former speaker losing his position because we said we didn't want to do that, and then we were pushed right up to it. It's a little different under this situation, this scenario with Trump and things going on. I predict we'll end up doing something towards the end. I don't know if we'll shut government down. I don't like that. I don't like the way that looks. But the reality is, when we do that, they try to make it hurt as much as it can. But and they talk about our military shutdown and all this, and that's just not the reality. And no one loses their house by law, and people their back pay is restored and all those things. And that, like I say, I think that's done by design, just to force folks to do something. And that's an old timers trick. I would hope at some point, if we would ever have larger than a 3-person majority. We're about one flu season away from being out of the majority, it seems, at all times. And so and with aging members, that is a reality. But yeah, I think it's by design. I think they do that to force us to vote for a bunch of terrible stuff. And I don't know where I'll be. I'll have to read the bills and figure out what we are funding and what we aren't funding. But again, it's going to come down to the wire. And I think the younger members get real nervous and or they get the 2 or 3 calls saying, "Oh, they're going to shut our parks down. You can't do this," and then they're freaking out. They're all fiscal conservatives until they get 2 or 3 phone calls or leadership calls or you get that call from Pennsylvania Avenue, and then all of a sudden your knees get a little weak. But I would hope that at some point we could hold our leadership accountable and say, in fact, we are going to have budget hearings. We are going to pass a budget. But the only way we're ever going to do that, honestly, ladies, is if we ever get to the point of single issue spending bills. We do that in Tennessee. And, you can't pass a dog catcher's bill and add a pay raise onto it. But in Washington, D.C., you can just do anything you want once you suspend the rules. Case in point, the largest spending bill that I think we've ever voted on. Of course, I voted against it. It was a transportation bill under Speaker Pelosi's regime. We passed out of transportation. It's like it was during COVID. I think it was a 17-hour hearing. And we passed a bill. It wasn't that bad, but we passed it out. And then she took that bill to her office with the lobbyist and the people and they added just incredible amounts of garbage. And where I believe about maybe 20% of it was what you would consider traditional transportation. They rewrote the bill. They brought it to the floor. They suspended the rules, so there was no discussion. It was an up or down vote, and it passed. And that's why you end up with all this crazy drag shows in Peru, kind of craziness in there. And so, it's the devil is always in the details, but it is by design that way. The old timer, and I'll talk about things like that, individual spending bills, and the old timers. Oh, Tim, we'd be here all night. Well, dadgum, we make $170 some odd $1,000. We ought to stay here all night. You tell the average Tennessean that, they're like, dadgum, I won't make that in 3 or 4 years. And so, I wish we would be serious about it and tell the public exactly what we're getting ready to do, but we won't. And like I say, it's by design. It's not one party centric. It's more of everybody calls it the swamp. And I always say, well, it's not a swamp. A swamp is something God created. Swamps are actually pretty cool. Yeah, it's the sewer. Exactly. It's a man-made sewer. That's what I call Washington, D.C. It is definitely man-made. It's a sewer and it stinks.
Obviously, Republicans have the trifecta in Washington right now. Y'all have the House, the Senate, and the White House. But to pass a government funding bill in the Senate, it does have to reach that 60-vote threshold. So there is going to have to be, some compromise with Democrats. And what do you see happening with that compromise? I think that Democrats are flustered right now after the rescissions package to work with Republicans on a spending bill. And so how do you think that that's going to play out?
I wish we'd just cram it down their throats in the House. I wish we'd pass what we want to pass and what our voters told us to pass and send it over to the Senate and put the pressure on them to do the right thing. I suspect, though, we're always saying, oh, we got them. We're going to stick it to the Senate kind of stuff. And we never stick it to the Senate. It's the most ridiculous thing. And it's so inside the park. You walk Main Street America and nobody knows what the heck you're even talking about. They just know you passed a terrible spending package. And so I would hope it sometime the House would get some guts and stick it and send it over to the Senate. And I wish, and the thing we do terrible is this messaging we do. We message and then we message among ourselves, like, who cares? It's a circular firing squad or something. And I get very aggravated. That's why I do my own media and I do my own internet stuff. And we're very successful at it. We're able to deliver a pretty good message, I think, to the country. And I wish other people would. But, you know, again, it's about power. It's about control. It's about leadership. And, you know, it's hard to get past that. I think everybody, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but it's the truth. When everybody gets to the House, all they're doing is looking at this angle or this way they can get to be the speaker. And maybe I'm the only guy up there who honestly admits I do not want to be speaker. I would never be speaker. And honestly,
I don't want to be speaker.
I certainly don't want to be speaker.
I wouldn't want to be elected speaker. I could never get elected speaker because enough Republicans hate my guts. And I get that, and I wish they'd quit saying it's the toughest job in America. Being a single mom would be the toughest job in America, I believe. So, and I married one. So my wife was a widow, and she raised our beautiful little girl for several years before I came along, and she did a good job, and it was very tough to do, but I wish they'd quit. You know, I think that's kind of, you know, you're pampered, you got your entourage, you got your jet airplanes, and, you know, and all this stuff in leadership, and I get it. But anyway, sorry, I went to rambling. Too much coffee this morning.
That's okay.
I always hate those guys on podcasts that drink their coffee, but here I am doing it. So
no, I love it. I like it. It's more fun.
I think we should start doing that. I think we need to have personalized mugs. No, but I appreciate kind of all that explanation, because I think that is something that a lot of people in like the Midwest, I get questions all the time. They don't understand the nitty gritty and the inner workings of not only Republicans and Democrats fighting against each other and trying to work things out, but also within the party, there's a lot of infighting, but there's also a lot of levels you got to go through to get somewhere. And like, even to just get a single bill on the floor, I feel like has been
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can't, you know, I was trying to defund the Taliban. We sent them $40 million a week. We found out through State Department documents and some other things. And it took me a year and a half to pass the bill. You know, that should be the type of thing that comes up. And I joke around. I say, when I'm talking to y'all, I say, I got to get in there. Those post offices aren't going to name themselves. And one other thing, if I could explain this, if it's all right, y'all are great to allow me to do this, but staff, that is the real sewer in Washington. The staff is, you look at, you know, we're the party of less government, and I look up there, and some of our committees, we have 50 staff people just on the Republican side. So you double that, 50 on the Democrat side, 100 staff full time, making great salaries, benefits, all that stuff. But here's how it happens. You're a young legislator and you want to do something. Like, for instance, I've been trying to these things where you take your DNA swab, you swab your mouth and you send it off to them, and it shows, you know, you're related to royalty. Nobody's ever related to a horse thief. It's always royalty, you know. And you get your DNA, and then what are they doing with that after they're done with it? Well, they're selling it to the Chinese. And what are the Chinese doing? As we've been told now it's been released, but the Chinese are literally working on a genome, which is genetic history of American women of childbearing ages. They're working on diseases that they could inflict us with. So, I mean, that is literally what we're selling to the Chinese, our genetic information. And I'm trying to ban that. And I can't do it because somebody's making a fortune. Some K Street lobbyist is you know, has got the ear of a staff member. And here's what happens. You come in there and you say, man, we need to do this. And the staffer says, oh, you're right, Congressman, you're right. Let me help you with that bill. And they go, well, I don't think we can do that quite yet. And I said, really, why not? Well, we really don't have enough proof. And they said, well, let's do this. Let's do a reporting bill. Let's do the research on it. And then next year, come back with a bill. And so you go home and say, oh, I passed my genetic, you know, bill. And because the title is the same, but it's been just gutted to where it's a reporting bill, which is bogus. And then the next year, you've already forgotten it. It's going on, or they built up enough opposition to it by then that you can't pass it. And so, you know, the lobbyists have the staff person's ear, and that's how bills get killed. I mean, I've heard chairmen say, oh, I can't do that. My staff wouldn't allow it. You know, who the hell elected their staff? this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But that's what our leadership and everybody's leadership allows us to go on because they're so in bed with these lobbyists. And you can't ban a lobbyist. I mean, that's First Amendment. Everybody says, oh, ban lobbyists. Well, dadgum, we're all lobbyists, you know? And so that's one of the great frustrations with me. In my book, my book, I think it's going to be called Compromised, the American Congress. You know, I'm going to talk about that, how that happens, and how bills, great pieces of legislation, because these reporting bills. Have you ever seen the final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Absolutely.
Well, okay. Well, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they go into this huge warehouse, and you think it's pretty good stuff. And then the camera widens and widens and widens, and you know it's unbelievable photography. And it's this vast warehouse of just, you know, hundreds of yards of warehouse. That's where your reporting bills go. I've never read a dadgum report from one of these reporting bills, and we spend millions of dollars every year doing that. And that's why I vote against a lot of these stupid reporting bills, because that's exactly what's happened to them. And we allow it, and you know, and everybody's afraid to blow the lid off of it because they need the contributions, and I get it, but it's a crooked game, and that's why America, the odds are stacked against you on meaningful legislation, because some greedy lobbyist does not care about his country. All they care about is the green, and that money is flowed in from China via some corporation. You know, there's a chain. The money's pretty washed, but it's pretty clear where it's coming from, and that's why you can't. That's why a lot of good legislation never gets passed, and we're gutless because we don't do anything about it. And leadership's all worried about being in leadership because you got to raise the money, you got to go to the trips, you got to do all this. And I want to tell you something too. I get warned off a lot, you know, because I'm on saying things like this on podcasts like this. And it's always a good friend of mine that'll come up to me that's in leadership. Hey, Burchett, man, I need to talk. You go, yeah, man. He goes, man, some of the leadership's really upset about what you said on that podcast or on the news or on Fox or CNN. I remember I said, but you know, it's the truth, right? And he said, oh yeah, we know it's the truth. We just wish you wouldn't say it, you know, and I get that all the time. And that's why I'll never be in leadership. They always try to kill me off, but I mean, I did 1 point better than President Trump did in my district. So they'll come after me, but you know, but don't tell President Trump that. So I don't want.
I'll make sure
President Trump will be listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. President, you carried me over the line. But no, but Trump's my buddy. But anyway, yeah, sorry again, too much coffee. But that's really what goes on in Washington. And I wish somebody would pull the veil back, but they're afraid to do it because you know the big media is afraid to do that because it would close off their avenue, you know, for stories and sources. So I get it. So you didn't ask for it, but I gave it to you.
Well, no, that's good. That's kind of what this show is about, is we want, a lot of people ask us all the time, you know, why do certain bills get selected? Why do certain bills that get passed are naming post office? Like, people want to know that. And that's why we like to have lawmakers on the show to talk about why, how things work. Because a lot of everyday Americans see the squabbles and they see the infighting and they see the cross-party fighting. And they're like, does anything get done? And the answer is like, I don't know, maybe.
Very rarely.
Rarely, yeah, kind of sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, you pass those big, beautiful bills, and if you're lucky, you can put something in one. But that's part of the problem too. You know, you vote for the bill because it's got your amendment on it, but then it's got a $1 trillion of waste in there somewhere. Not that the big, beautiful bill did, but a lot of times in the past, that's how they add it. They load up the cart.
And then another quick question we have for you is, there is going to be an open Senate seat in your hometown or your home state of Tennessee. And that's something that a lot of people have been asking. People have asked us, what is your thoughts about that? Are you interested in that? Are you pursuing that potentially? I know it's a whiles away, but you know, it's something to think about.
100%. I'm not going to be one of those politicians that said, oh, I'm forming a study committee, or they come back and go, oh, I was drafted. No, heck no, I want to be in the Senate. I want to slug it out. I want to be in that environment to slug it out. I think I would bring something to that environment very much. I enjoy the fight. I'm not backing down from anybody. Yeah. And I've been in, I think 37 counties now across the state of Tennessee. I've been invited to speak. That's the one thing we're not actually pursuing. We're not, please have us speak, please have, but people are calling. And so I'll speak. Apparently with the message that I give of limited government and fighting it out with the big boys is, it resonates across Tennessee. And I would love that opportunity, but it's going to be an unusual situation because you got Marsha Blackburn, of course, she's the front runner. She is way far ahead in all the polling and everything else. And if she were to win the governor's race, she could literally resign from the Senate, walk across the stage, get sworn in as governor, and their first official duty would be to assign her replacement. So, and Marsha's been a great friend of mine. We were in the state Senate together. We sat beside each other. She's the lady that stopped the state income tax in Tennessee. She got on the internet. It was young in its infancy. I like to say Al Gore had just invented the internet. And that's a Tennessee political thing. Al Gore claimed he invented the internet or something. I don't know. But that usually gets a chuckle out of Tennessee and say, get that. But so that's where we're at with that. If that were to happen, I would love that opportunity. I really would. But if not, dadgummit, I'm a United States congressman. More people have played professional baseball than have been in the United States Congress. So I'm very honored to be in this position that I'm in. There's not a lot of Tim Burchetts in Congress.
There's no Tim Burchetts in Congress other than you.
Yes,
I don't know about
you
that.
have moniker.
Yeah. I'll have to look that word up. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I don't know if I should be she pleased with what you said or angry. But no, but I've often said if your congressman enjoys Washington, you probably need to get a new dadgum congressman because it's not what it's made out to be. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, you being the one Tim Burchett in Congress brings me to my next question. I know that obviously you said that a lot of people can be mad at you in Congress sometimes, but there's also a really large group of people in Congress that love being your friend. I think that Rachel and I have gotten to see a lot of that. Like we watch you come down the steps, you're with your skateboard, you're giving fist bumps. I have just like a more fun question to wrap it up. If you were to have one person to get coffee with or get dinner with on the Republican side and the Democrat side, what members would you choose and why?
I don't know. I'm buddies with all of them. I mean, the speaker's always nice to me. He'll send me a nice message every now and then, and I'll cuss him and then love on him a little later. So, I don't know.
That's the job. That's what he signed up for.
Yeah.
I always see you and AOC in cahoots on the steps.
Yeah. Well, me and Cortez, as I call her, and she calls me Burchett. We're buddies. We came to Congress together. I'm a Christian. I'm not a very good one, but I don't want to be that jerk that, you always hear people, another jerk Christian, I want to be their friend. That's why I call my the second to back row, I call it center's row, because when people get in trouble, they'll come sit beside me. And because I don't care. I mean, we're all dirt bags. We're all forgiven. And if we ask for it, and so I don't stand in judgment of anybody in Congress because everybody's in different situations. You have people that are stuff, terrible things going on in their life. And I've been that person. I've had terrible things and nobody would talk to you. And people, I've been through a bad divorce. None of them are good. And I've had, I've lost my folks, both my mom and daddy are in heaven. And I've had a lot of bad things happen in my life and I've had a lot of good things. So it's always easy to be friends with somebody when, they're getting the Nobel Peace Prize, but when they're getting the crap kicked out of them over some editorial or something, or they're messing around or doing something they shouldn't have done, I just can't kick them to the curb, and it's like my buddy George Santos. I was always afraid I was his mentor. I remember when my my chief of staff came in and the former chief of staff came in and said, "Boss, I know what you're going to say." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "George Santos needs a mentor and nobody wants to do it." And I said, "I know, I'll do it." He goes, "I knew you'd say that." And, so I just have a hard time being that person because it's you're in the international spotlight. So yeah, I mean, you asked a question. I don't know. Who would I want to hang out with? Well, I hang out with them all the time. I mean, I'm in prayer group with my buddy Jonathan Jackson. He and I don't agree on nothing, but I remember one day he called me and said, he said, "What are you doing?" It was raining, and my wife and daughter and I were watching television because you can't do much when it's raining out there with the horses on the farm or anything. Just get them in the barn. That's about all you can do. And I said, I was sitting here on the couch. He said, "Can I put you on FaceTime?" And I said, "Well, sure." And that guy, he put me on with Jesse Jackson, his daddy. And he said, "Are you friends with any white Republicans?" And he said, "One." and he put me on. He's friends with everybody.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I thought that's kind of surreal, but no, I don't know. I guess it'd be hard for me to level it down to one person because I've got so many, and Republicans, just all across the board. Rudy Yakim or whatever his last name is. I never can get it right. He's a Republican. He's a buddy of mine. He's a good daddy to his family, and he let me hang out with him one time in an airport, and we had a great time. I don't know. I just go through the list there.
You're just friends with everybody.
Friends. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I try to be. I'm a conservative. I'm just not angry about it. I get it. Steve Cohen, one of my best buddies. We passed the speed limit in Tennessee, raised it to 70, and he and I used to hang. As a matter of fact, first time I ever ate a lobster was with Steve Cohen.
That's awesome.
He was chairman, so they'd buy him great meals, and I wouldn't get a whole lot. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, I have a good friendship with a lot of folks, and Steve actually called my mama when my daddy died, so I can't be angry at Steve.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. I mean, it's nice for people to know that, there is a lot of media attention on the fights and, you see the clips of everyone arguing, but it is nice to know that there is some semblance of hope that Congress can work together. People can eat lobsters together and hang out. Maybe we can pass bills together.
That was in Nashville. I haven't eaten ate lobster in a long time. That was probably 20 years ago, but yeah. So I just want anybody to think I'm up eating lobster, and I don't ever go out much in Washington. I sleep on my couch in my office at night, and I shower in the gym. It's too dadgum expensive in Washington,
It's so expensive. I can attest for that.
Same here. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Congressman, so much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Sorry I ramble so much.
No, we like the ramble.
Always welcome.
Get all the info. Always welcome.
Right
Well,
on.
we're excited to see you back in Washington.
Yes, see you soon.
I'm not excited to be back, but thank you. I might have a new skateboard when I come back too. I've been working on a new design. And that's another thing. Dadgum, you can do insider training in stocks, and I've been trying to start a skateboard business. I have to hire an attorney. It's dadgum. It's the craziest thing. Anyway.
That is crazy.
Thank
you so much for coming on.
We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Welcome to our Q&A section where
Our favorite part,
yes, about answering questions from you, the viewers, the listeners, whoever wants to hear our thoughts on the matter. And so we have a question from Carolina, and if you could read it up to me, I will think of my answer.
Yeah, she asked, how do lobbyists and think tanks influence politics, which is an incredible question. I get that.
That's a crazy
I get it
question.
every time I go home. I get it all the time.
And a lot of people don't realize, I think, and people I've talked to who work in DC, they work on the Hill, they've told me that they did not realize when they came to work here how much
I didn't.
Certainly not, how much lobbying and think tanks influence the decisions. And so to kind of backtrack a little bit for people who are like, what are you guys talking about?
Yes.
So lobbyists and think tanks, they are groups, and they will come either on behalf of themselves, they will hire people to go for them, and they will go to members of Congress and they will advocate for that company or for themselves. And they do it through meetings with staff, they do it with communication flyers, they do it with events, they do it with, sit downs with the members themselves, imploring them. And it can be on a range of anything. If there's a energy bill on the floor, that not only are leadership whipping the members to vote for the bill one way or the other, but outside of Capitol Hill, just down the street are think tanks and lobbyists who are telling members, don't vote for this bill. We have money that's involved in this, or, we donate to campaigns or whatever. Yeah. And it can get kind of sticky. Yeah. All of those TV shows about DC politics, they're a little drama, but some of that is true.
I think that they're pretty accurate.
They're kind of accurate though. After being now in this, I think we're seeing like, oh, actually, I'll watch them and I'll be like, that would happen in real life. But, like, it is true. There's like politics is dirty, and a lot of it is these lobbyists are very persuasive. That's their whole job. Yeah. Their job is to come.
It's essentially, I describe it as like sales in politics. Like it is. It's essentially like sales or consulting in politics. They're for-profit and nonprofit lobbying firms. I think that the way that I usually describe it is a big corporation comes to a lobbying firm that lobbies for issues that they are coming to them about. These people essentially, if they go to Congress and they get any legislation that includes language that benefits that company that they asked for, then the lobbying firm gets paid.
Which is so crazy. So you're basically working kind of on commission, I guess, right? Sort of?
Pretty similar. And also, like, it's crazy because I think that jobs in DC are so fluid. Like, somebody who does comms on the Hill, somebody who is a journalist, and somebody who is at a lobbying firm is all in charge of getting the same information.
Absolutely. It's just how you do it.
It's just how you do it and how you relay it. And so, I mean, a lot of lobbyists' job is just to, like, get information, know what members are thinking with certain legislation that affects the companies that are coming to them.
Yeah.
And then persuade people to vote for legislation that benefits the companies.
Well, we just heard from Tim Burchett talking about his thoughts on staff, which was so hilarious to me. But staff really do a lot on the Hill, and that's what I think another question that I've gotten from people is, you know, how hard at work are your lawmakers? And I will not answer that question super honestly, because that's not the job. We report the news. We don't share our opinions. But I will say that impartially, a lot of the work that gets done on the Hill are the staffers.
The staff works incredibly hard.
Yes, and so they're helping writing the bills. They're the ones taking the meetings, and oftentimes members will take the meetings as well. You know, I know we have staffer friends who have sat in on meetings with the boss all the time. You know? And so I think it is when you come to the Hill and you're a staffer or you're a lobbyist. You know, two people from college could come from the same college. They're both 22. They're excited. They're coming to work in politics. They both come into completely different fields, and yet they could meet up 4 years later in the same room talking about the same thing. And I think that that's just so fascinating to me that everyone has the same job of making change in the world or in politics.
Totally.
But they're doing it in different avenues. And that's kind of what we do, is we do shows like this, or we report and we write our articles because we want to change the view of the world and make sure everyone gets, you know, does the right thing, you know. So
it's all super fluid.
It's all super fluid. Yeah, people move around all the time.
But I never in a million years would have understood the fluidity of jobs in DC.
Never.
And how they all kind of interconnect. I like to say that everyone has the same job, they're just in a different font.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
And I never would have realized, like, I minored in political science, and I didn't even realize, like, the amount of avenues that I could have gone to until living in the Beltway. It's kind of mind-boggling.
It's crazy. And I think a lot of people, it maybe can help people understand that if you go into political science and that's your major, you don't have to be a politician.
And I just don't think I realized how many, like, outlets there were to work in DC. Like, kind of whenever you major in political science, you think that you can run for office. I love political science. I don't ever want to run for office.
Certainly don't want to run for office. Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe that's what we should do. Our next show should just be us talking about all the different jobs you could have with one major. The list would be very long. I mean, I'm a journalism and international relations major, and I always thought that I was going to be doing, you know, foreign correspondence. That's what I wanted to do. But I realized that with my international relations, I actually just have so much knowledge about different countries and different people and how politics in DC impacts the world. And so that's influenced me as a journalist.
Totally.
So there's so many things that you could do. And
there's so many.
And there's, you know, I'm sure it will never stop.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for watching Capital Conversations with Rachel and Lauren.
And make sure to like and subscribe to this video. We want your questions, we want your follows, we want your listening, any of it. We are very excited to talk with you.